welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to make a layered skirt. This video is going to be in two parts, and today's video will be the first part, which will be the skirt, and the next video will be the upper part, which will be the top part of the video. This is a selkie inspired outfit. I tried it and I would love to share with you how to make both the top and the bottom part. So without further rambling, let's get right into the video. An overview of what the tutorial is going to be about. We need about 3 rectangles for this layered skirt. I'll quickly illustrate by drawing out all 3 rectangles, and I'll use that to show you what the skirt would look like. The length of each of these rectangles will be dependent on how long you want them to be. For me, I wanted the length of the first rectangle to be 10 inches long, and then I added 2 inches for the elastic waistband. I also added 1 inch seam allowance to join it at the top, and 1 inch seam allowance to join it at the bottom part. So in total, for the first layer, I had 14 inches as the length. For the second layer, I wanted mine to be 14 inches long, and then I added 2 inches seam allowance to join it at the top and at the bottom part. And for the last layer, I wanted mine to be 17 inches long, and then I added 2 inch seam allowance to join it at the top and at the bottom part. Now, the width of the first rectangle will be your hip circumference plus 6 inches extra. So this is how wide the first rectangle is going to be. For me, my hip circumference is 41 inches plus 6 inches, and this gives me 47 inches. The second layer would be the width of the first layer multiplied by 2. So in this case, 47 multiplied by 2. And for the third layer, this would be the width of the second layer multiplied by 2. In this case, 94 multiplied by 2. However, if you don't want yours to be too wide, you could use 1.5 and not 2. So basically, for the first rectangle, that would be your hip circumference plus 6 inches extra. So in this case, 41 plus 6, which gives me 47 as the wideness of the first rectangle. And for the second part, that would be the wideness of the first multiplied by 2. And for the third, that would be the wideness of the second multiplied by 2. And there's going to be an elastic waistband. So here is my elastic band. And then I'll show you how to join all of these 3 rectangles together. So all of my fabrics have been cut out in layers. So I have 3 layers all cut out separately. The first thing I'm going to do is to connect all of the rectangles together. So for me, I had about 3 rectangles for the second layer and about 4 or 5 of them for the third layer. Let's start with the first layer. So I will join the ends of the first layer together with a straight stitch, and then I would hem the top part, iron it out, run a straight stitch before creating a casing for the elastic waistband. I'll take this to my sewing machine and I'll show you what it looks like. So here is the first layer. I'm just going to join the ends of the rectangle together with a straight stitch. So I'll quickly run a straight stitch all the way across. And by the time I'm done doing this, I'm going to have a wide circle. So I'm going to turn this inside out. So here is my first layer. And here's the circle we just formed by running a straight stitch to join the ends together. So I'll fold the top part in place, iron it out, and then run a straight stitch before creating the casing for the elastic band. So I'll quickly do this and then I'll show you what it looks like. So I'll run a straight stitch all the way across to secure the first layer, and then I'll create the space for the elastic casing. So here is what it looks like after I created the elastic casing for the top part. And here is the space where the elastic band is going to be. I'll continue with the second layer and I'll join all of the rectangles together. So for the second part, I think I had about 3 rectangles which I'm going to join right sides facing right sides together. And I'll connect this with a straight stitch. So for all 3 rectangles for the second layer, I'm going to run a straight stitch right sides facing right side. And then I'm going to run a straight stitch all the way across. So you'd have to match all of the pieces for each of the layers together and then run a straight stitch, and by the time you're done, you'd have to connect the ends of the rectangle together to form a circle, just like I did for the first part. And once the circle is formed, I'm going to run a basting stitch. So I'm just going to show you what it looks like. So here is my circle and a basting stitch has been run. So I'll just gather this up to the wideness of the very first layer. So the basting stitch is to enable us gather up the second layer, and the gathering will be based on how wide the first layer is. So I'm going to check how wide the first layer is, and that would determine how much I gather the second layer, just like I explained earlier. So once I determine that, I'm going to turn this inside out, right side facing right side. And then I'll pin this together just like this. So I'll turn this inside out, making sure that the bottom part of the first layer is connected with the upper part of the second layer. And I'm going to pin it right in place together. Once I'm done pinning this together in place, I'm going to run a straight stitch to join this together. So I'm just going to run a straight stitch and I'll show you what it looks like. So here is what it looks like. The first layer has been connected to the second layer. The next step would be to join all of the rectangles for the third layer together, just like I did for the second layer. So right sides facing right sides, I'll connect all of the rectangles for the third layer together. And by the time I'm done with that, I'll create the circle for the third layer. And then I would run a basting stitch, just like I did the second layer. So like the second layer as well, you're going to gather the third layer together after running a basting stitch, and you gather this based on how wide the second layer is. So I'll check how wide the second layer is, and that will determine how wide I gather up the third layer. And by the time I'm done with this, I will join this together like the second layer with a straight stitch, and this is what it looks like. So the first and the third and the second layer all joined together. The next part would be to add the elastic waistband. So I'm going to introduce the elastic waistband. You'd have to use your pin to insert this all the way across. And the next step would be to hem the bottom part. By the time you're able to do this, you iron it out, and that would be basically all. Your skirt is ready. Thank you so much for waiting till the end of this video. In the next video, I'll be showing you how I made the top part of this outfit. If you haven't seen my video on how to make puffy sleeves already, that video is going to be helpful because the top part has got puffy sleeves. I am going to link that in the description box so you can go check that out. And if you haven't already subscribed, what are you waiting for? Please go subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't get to miss any of my videos. So thank you so much.